that came together. And the Divi project, they're excellent people. Nick
Yeah, they're
Stefano, Jeff
they're
McCabe.
leaders. They're leaders.
They, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what they're doing is awesome. One of their policies, and
Mhm.
Jeff might talk about this a little bit, was like Divi everywhere, actually making something that's community run currency that has the ability to, be everywhere. Like,
For sure.
accessibility is a big thing for him. He's got a marketing mindset. He has a substantial background. I know, me and you were talking a little bit about his history,
Mhm.
and he has remember the festival stuff he was talking about. He's been in the space forever.
Yeah,
He's
so,
been doing.
I saw that, he just released, like, a WhatsApp, integration. So people, you can really, like, start it, like, it really is starting an inter Hey, and here's Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Hi. It's
Hey, how you
interesting
doing?
sitting here listening to you guys talking about me, and I'm like, hey, I'm right here around the corner.
I wanna join in.
I can hear you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
talking.
Absolutely. We give everybody a
I'm in
little
Mexico.
intro, and I wanted.
Yeah, I was just speaking about how you're really big on trying to, spread Divi, and I was just saying the last time we spoke, that you had an integration with WhatsApp.
Yeah, we call that Divi Go.
Divi Go.
And you
Okay.
mentioned Divi everywhere, and I really like that I like the way you were talking about it, because it made me feel like we're doing something right, because you guys really get the idea of why that's important, and think it's as cool as I do.
Yeah, because Blockchain Center, I think, like, we try to reiterate, or at least come back to the idea that our main mission is to spread crypto, or, like, the idea of blockchain, and a lot of what that means is getting it into the hands of people who may or may not have, like, the expertise, or just, everybody does have WhatsApp. That's a really good place to start in that kind of getting people into it, because
Yeah.
we all have our, like, phones, and that is, like, the best place for to spread it.
Right. Everybody's using their phones more and more. I actually don't like to use my phone. I don't like sitting there. I type really fast, so sitting there doing
Oh,
this,
yeah.
trying is not fun for me, because I'm just too slow.
I know, it's like your brain's
Right.
working faster than my thumbs, and I'm like, and then
I got meat hooks, so the thumbs are not my. I've always been a computer guy, as is Eric. I believe Eric's not like really the phone type. We're becoming a little bit more phone type, but they make these things. They make them for people with a lot smaller fingers. Like my girlfriend does really well. She goes off
Right.
like but
Well,
for
and
me,
I
the other
don't want to
part
do
is
the opposite and get a big
the other
phone.
part
That's
is
horrible.
the other part is when you move your life onto your phone, then you can never escape anything. It's with you all the time, and I'm surprised. I go to dinner with somebody, and they're sitting there at dinner, like pulling out their phone and answering messages. I'm like,
oh my
it's
god!
like, how
I
can you
do
do that?
try.
It's like there should be a law, right? But I thought there was a law, like between humans, that you don't do that kind of thing in the middle of dinner, right, with people you barely know, and unless it's like an emergency, or at least you say something like, I got to get this message. I'm sorry, But apparently that's that's not part of a lot of people's social contract with other people. So maybe I'm just old. I'm 52.
No, I think you're.
I wasn't gonna make that
you're-
comment, but I was gonna make a comment on my own age, because you weren't going to do anything at the dinner table other than have dinner.
Mhm.
So that makes sense. I think that a lot of people try to have that, like, a part of, like, their dinner time. And
Yeah.
if you go to especially if you go out to dinner, that's expensive. It's like this time's, like, even more rare and even more special. So it's like, why don't you just sit here and focus? I just got a smarter phone, and I had like a $40 Android from like 4 years ago, up until just now, because I was like, I know that I'm gonna get the apps, but if it's so slow, I don't want to use it. That's even better. I mean, I have computers to do all the fast stuff. Like, I got GPUs and actual, but I get what you mean. I'm not trying to have it literally tacked on to me, because my mind would just spill out onto the floor.
But to some extent, I feel like it's unavoidable, because the younger people being raised now, they're on the phone all the time. Like, they have the expectation that if they send you a message 24 hours a day, that you respond within 10 seconds, or there's something wrong with you.
Oh
right?
my god!
So if you're dealing with these people, if they're your employees, if they're your friends, then you kind of are not being able to participate, and you're basically not communicating in the style that people think is normal. And so I feel like this sort of cyborgization of society is going to happen whether we like it or not. And we old grandpas have to either get used to it or become illiterate to some extent because we're not communicating in the new style.
I felt
And
like an Android with like an AirPod in. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I think I started hating the whole social media addiction thing. Like everybody has their addiction, whatever, right? Is like that like had me when I was younger because like you're trying to talk to girls or whatever, on the internet, sure. But then like you get to a certain age and I was like, it's I'm good. Like there's enough people I see on a daily basis. Yeah, I mean it just happened one day. I don't know what to tell you. I would have been super into the phone back in the day, but then one day I was just like, I don't, whatever, it's a phone.
Well, you're not trying to
care.
chase clout on TikTok, like whatever.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is that like my 14-year-old daughter, her and her friends think it's incredibly uncool, like taking selfies and putting this stuff on the internet. That's just only losers do that kind of thing in her in her mind, So maybe the younger generations will kind of reject that kind of thing and will kind of put away their phones because they don't maybe they're being ignored by their parents. And they're like, I don't want to be like that, So
yeah, I think Gen Z's got that down. I think that they do have there is a movement in young people not to, go crazy with like drugs and alcohol because since they are so hyper connected, they see the negative effects. They're like, wait a second, you can't body shame me into buying makeup, or something like that. Like they do that, and they're smart in that way, and I think that being hyper connected is a part of that. So people don't they see the pattern a lot easier because there's so much more information.
I do want to pivot. I mean, I think this is a really great conversation. I want to have more of these, and there's a ton of things I want to talk about, like hyper connectivity and everything. But I did want to put the spotlight on you, Jeff. There's some things I don't know about your background and where you you came from and how you ended up in the tech space. There are some things that I understand. And I know, back in the day you did some festivals, all this stuff. And like, that was awesome because we had that NFT project and everything Burning Man and however that worked out. But I was very curious, like, kind of your history and like what led you into blockchain, because I think I take it for granted. Like I always knew your name. I saw you talking places. I believe I met Nick Stefanero in person a couple different times, like over the years. I don't, whether it was bumping into, he's a great guy. And I was like really curious about a couple things, like what was your journey like in tech? Like, from way back, I know you're in Costa Rica, you're doing awesome things. You have a bunch of games, you have all this wonderful stuff going on, but like, what was that journey like? And then actually, if you could add in there, like how, like you and Nick, like how did you guys end up, building DIVI, and tell me about this whole pathway and lineage of your lineage in tech and what that looks like.
Well, so my journey into tech started, in junior high school, basically, when I moved to Seattle from Southern California and walked when I was in 6th grade, they put me in the computer room, where they had these pet computers. They were Commodore Pets. And I took to it right away, wanting to program things. I started learning and then I went to join computer club. I was very introverted. I was very shy. I'm 6 foot tall now, but I was one of the shortest kids back then, and so I was like shy and introverted. And so I took to computers. I think like a lot of kids like that. And back then, there was nothing cool about being a geek, right? If you were a geek, you were a loser, right? So, but we, us sort of the smart kids, right? The chess club kids and this kind of stuff. We took to computers really, really well. And in high school, I, loved computers and anything to do with them and started coding, right? So, of course, back then we called it programming, and we were learning things like BASIC and assembly language and this kind of thing. And I was president of the computer club, I think my senior year. But at some point I realized that if I do nothing but computers all my life, I'm never going to meet girls. I'm never going to get married. I'm going to be a loser forever. So I decided I wanted to get out of computers, right? And there was I think there was one girl in the entire computer club. We had one, and And so I realized like I wanted more balance in my life, right? So I started like taking some art classes in high school. Actually, I was studying physics. I took physics a year early in high school, and I dropped out of like my advanced math class. I decided to take art instead. I decided that I wanted to have a balance, and
That's good.
yeah. So then I went to college. I did computers, but the other thing is I was like a major, I wouldn't say a hacker, but I was a computer, a software pirate. Like I was, you know, world known software pirate. I had what was called an AE, and I was really worried about the guy, you know, the SWAT team coming in and arresting me and stuff. So when I turned 18, all of a sudden I was like, well, now I could probably go to jail for the stuff that I'm doing, stealing. You know, I was a freak, which you know, PH freak, which
Oh yeah, with the
just
phone freakers.
yeah. So we were stealing phone time and all this kind of stuff in order to run these things. And I had friends who were hackers. I didn't go that far, but I knew some people that had gone to jail, you know, and right when they were 18 and stuff in Seattle. And so I kind of wanted to get out of that, and I wanted to focus more on other things. So that's what I did in college. I didn't really study computer stuff, although I started using computers in some like biology classes and writing software that was calculating the growth of biological systems, stuff that the professors had never seen, you know, that was really interesting. And they're like, "Oh, you should publish this," but you know, wasn't very interested in that at the time. And so then I went to graduate school in physics, and I started programming computers there again in order to control these robotic systems that grew
Mhm.
crystals for laser crystals and stuff like this. So you just can't get away from computers, and I was good at it, so I kept doing it, and then I decided to drop out of physics, and I started a business doing jewelry. So I ended up in
Oh yeah.
China. Yeah, so I ended up in China, and I kind of invented this type of jewelry that all of a sudden, within 2 years, we were selling, I think, $5 or $6 million worth of it when I was 24 years old. It was like massive, successful all over the world, and I had a
Oh, what
partner.
jewelry
So
was it?
it was made with Fimo clay. And we were the first ones to do hemp jewelry, like macrame hemp jewelry on a big scale, and we're the first ones to make hemp seed jewelry, where we actually drill little holes in each hemp seed, and we did all
Holy.
kinds of crazy stuff, and it was very creative. But at that point, that's where I learned about products, right? I really had to learn how to make things that people really enjoyed as a product. You know, they had to have the immediate sort of user experience of what it was like, the tactileness and the way it looked, and the marketing, the packaging, all this stuff. When they saw it in the store, then when they got it home, they would use it, they would like it, they would maybe buy another one, and they would sort of learn our brand. So I had to think about real products. If the products didn't sell, we went out of business, you know, and it was all with our own money. We didn't have investors. So I've always grown up in my business life with a very different mentality, because I've never had somebody like throw money at me like this crazy ICO thing we ended up doing, where, you know, we raised $2.6 million, and you know, I
Yeah.
have other people's money, and that makes me nervous. It's like borrowing. For me, it wasn't like free money the way a lot of people look at ICOs. It was like
You shouldn't
people,
think that way.
these for me, it was these other human beings have loaned me their money with the expectation that this is going to be something great, you know, and that I need to. And if I fail, it's my reputation, and I would feel horrible about myself, right? So
Yeah, but you're the
so
that's a good way of looking at it. It is other people's money, and that just means that you're not a you're not a scammer like some of these people on the scene.
I
yeah,
think
there's
it's the only way to look at it,
Yeah.
honestly.
mhm. But that's weird, because you know, you're supposed to, at the same time, these are not investors, they're token buyers, and they take their own risk and blah blah. I mean, you look at the contract that these people dealt with when they bought Divi tokens. We took it straight from EOS. We took it from EOS and
Mhm.
like changed all the sort of relevant things, and we read through it, and I was like, this is a joke, you know, like these people get no guarantee of anything. You know, we don't have to deliver a product. You know, I couldn't believe what you're, but we read through it, and we're like, well, I guess that's standard in the ICO business. They obviously know what they're doing. You know, they're raising, you know, huge amounts of money,
Mhm.
and so we just used their contract, figured it was standard, but we didn't we didn't consider it that way. You know, a lot of people are not happy with EOS because they raised all this money, but they haven't spent a lot on the ecosystem. For us, our intention was to spend every penny as wisely as we possibly could to try to deliver the best possible products, and 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 fulfill people's expectations of us. You know, so basically, then we went into crypto winter. At first, there were 5 partners. Nick was one of them. I didn't know him at the time. He was brought in originally to build our website, and then quickly we found out this guy's really smart, and really creative, really smart, really driven. He really wanted to succeed. And I told him earlier on, I'm like, you're a special human being. Like, you're going to be, if you keep this up, you're going to be a famous guy in the crypto space, because you're really young. He's really handsome. He speaks really well. And he just really cares about the product. He cares about people. He has everything, that was 3.5 years ago. And I was at that time, I think I was 49, and I've worked with lots and lots of people over the world, and I knew that he had humongous potential as a sort of business leader over time. He was young, I think he was 25 or 26 at the time, and so he was half my age, but I knew that there was great potential. Now, there were other founders at the time, though, but what we quickly found, that basically Nick and I were doing all the work and delivering all the value. So one by one, sort of the others left in various different ways, and you hear all these stories from other ICOs, and they have all these tragedies. We had our tragedies and our horrible things that happened in the background. And I've actually there's some of that stuff I actually talk about without naming names, some of the horrible stuff that happened. But to make a long story short, we lost, at one point, basically all the money was gone. And so I started pouring all my own money, and my father passed away, and I inherited about $400,000. So I basically poured all my inheritance into making sure DIVI succeeded, right? Nick and I weren't taking a salary. We were, I think he was living like in his mom's house, and I was like, I was lucky. I had another business that was making money, and so I just didn't need a salary, and I was any extra money I had was just dumping into DIVI, keeping it alive, and we just absolutely refused to fail. I mean, just absolutely refused.
That's
there was
great.
no way. And it was kind of like we had a handshake deal with each other. Like, even if it's only the two of us left, and we have to learn to program C++ and make this launch, we're going to do it, And we just had that attitude, just overturning every single stone to make sure this succeeded. And we watched other ICOs that raised 8 million, 10 million, 20 million, all going bankrupt, burning all their money away. And we were like,
yeah, how does that happen? That's so insane for me to think about that. I was just like, well, how do you?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. I mean, a lot of times people, they can't afford to do what we did.
Yeah.
Nick had some of his own savings. I think he was living in his mom's house. She was paying rent, but it still was very little. And I had other income, so we were able to work for nothing and work 100-hour weeks. And that's inspiring to the people around you. That builds a good team. People see what you're doing, and they want to do that. They want to work hard. We had a lot of people coming in that were volunteering, that were spending, double full-time jobs for free, because they loved DIVI, and they were inspired, I think, by our passion for this. And so we had it wasn't just us, right? We had all these other people that were helping us, and we were able to, at one point, we hired this team of supposed geniuses, these artificial intelligence geniuses that were building our blockchain, and it was like, oh, this will be easy for us, we do AI. And so they basically went bankrupt. They took our entire dev budget with them and half of our marketing budget, and we were left with only $140,000 and nothing. Like, we had not one line of usable code. We had to start all over, and we had $140,000 left from the 2.6 million. It's just all been lost in various ways.
So that's just where it goes. Holy.
Yeah, it goes to all kinds of stuff. We decided we didn't cash it out. We had left it, like, we could have maybe put it into Tether or something, but we decided, let's just keep it in ETH, because Mike Novogratz and everybody was saying, oh, ETH is gonna, become the huge thing. So we'll just leave it there. And because anything else seemed like gambling. Like, we got it as ETH, but we shouldn't gamble with people's investments. So let's just keep it in the coin that it came in. That was sort of our logic. Of course, that was a disaster. At the time, ETH dropped and dropped and dropped until a tiny fraction of what it was, and we kept saying, well, it's going to bounce off the bottom at any time, so we don't want to sell it now at the bottom. But the bottom kept going lower, So there's a whole bunch of things like that happened, but somehow at the end we ended up with $140,000 and had to start all over with a brand new team, and we were able to do it. We found people. We found this amazing guy named Yuri in the Ukraine, who built our blockchain, and he did in 6 weeks what an entire team of American geniuses failed to do over 4 or 5 months. He did it in
That's
6 weeks.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's like
He's
it's so necessary to have people like that. Realistically, I mean, you're
and
not
don't
gonna
Mhm.
you're
and
not
he
gonna be
did
able
it
to
and he
overcome
did it in
talent
his
like that.
he did it in his spare time as well. He's a CTO of StakeNet now, and one of the founders of StakeNet, which is another masternode coin. So we knew masternodes, and what we were asking him to do, we had these sort of unique features that we wanted. Like we wanted this multi-tiered masternode system that had never been done before. He did that. He did our lottery blocks, the once, sort of weekly lottery that is based on the blockchain, and a bunch of other stuff. He just did it. He's a genius, So he was able to do that for us. And then we had 2 guys from Belarus who still work for us who built our wallet, and they did the one-click masternode. They did it in 6 weeks, and like nobody else has been able to do that in the industry. They did it in 6 weeks, these guys, and so we're very lucky. We have just these great guys that really are really smart, and they love what they're doing. And then we've added, of course, to the team. Whenever we can, we pick up really great people. Right now, we have Daniel Kraft, who works part-time for us, and he's the CTO of Zaya, which is a really amazing game-based token, smart contract token. And he was the lead developer of Namecoin and HunterCoin, and he's another blockchain genius. So we've got
We
these
we were just
really good people.
we were just talking about Namecoin a minute ago. Eric had to drop off. He had some
Mhm.
hackathon related thing, but we were just talking about Namecoin and how they were like one of the first people actually trying to take blockchain and make it do something that was like a little bit outside of, I guess, like the remittance value, right? Like they were trying to
Right.
resolve a new DNS network, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly the details, but incredible team. I mean, very interesting project. I think everything you touched on though is like, the way that I look at it, at least, is my preference in like a team and everybody else is somebody who's willing to stand out in front of their product, tell everybody, be very clear about what's going on. And you guys have the Live at 5 event, and I tuned in for a second while I was on 2 streams at once. I was listening to Nick talk, and
Yeah.
man, that guy's got some energy. Like he's very passionate. I mean, I don't know if you can replace. I don't know if you'd ever be able to like replace somebody like that. Like it is, like you said, very unique. I think your team has a lot of passion, and what the community is freaking incredible that you guys have. It's absolutely it. I mean, I come from the marketing perspective in trying to build communities like that, so
Yeah.
I know what it takes to build something like that, right? And it's incredible. The other technological innovations that you guys are doing, one-click deploy masternode, wonderful. The WhatsApp thing, the wallet, the UI UX, the focus on DIVI everywhere. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're checking the boxes, you guys are just doing, from my point of view, very forward-thinking things, and they're all in the right direction. There's not one thing that I could pick out and say, "Hey, look."
And they're also very simple. Like they're very kind of obvious. Those things that everybody years from now will be like, why wasn't everybody doing that? It's so obvious. Of course you want to have your coin everywhere. Only Bitcoin is doing that, right now. But
Yeah.
nobody else is doing it. And it's strange to me because it's real obvious when you think about all the benefits of having your coin on every network, So hopefully not everybody's listening to this and just going to copy it. But we've had a lot of great ideas I thought everybody would copy. Like I thought for sure everybody would copy the multi-tiered masternode thing because to me it's so obvious the benefits that come out of that, and I've explained it so many times in interviews and but just not enough people have noticed what we're doing to copy a lot of it.
Yeah, you guys have that like sponsor super masternode, or I'm sorry, what was the term for the top tier in that? You guys have like
The diamond,
multiple tier based.
yeah,
Yeah, the diamond tier, like, yeah, it's gamified in a way that makes sense in 2021, not even
right,
2020, 2021, right?
right,
So like you guys are set up for like the next 2-3 years on pretty good system that makes actually an excellent system that really tries to reward new users and that come in, right? And how do you become part of the community? How do you stake your divvy? How do you provide support for the ecosystem? Well, you guys have a real clear path to doing so. So these are things that from my perspective, if I was in the same architecture that you were, if I was doing a similar type of system, these are decisions that I would hope that I would have the clarity and time and insight to be able to go down a similar road. I mean, I think, there's a lot of times, whether the community's happy, sad, things shift, and it's really easy, especially in the space, to get pulled off and go to a different direction because there's so much opportunity. It seems like you guys have a really clear focus, like you said. Whether it was the personal sacrifices that you and Nick made, during the down market, the up market, in between, developers lost, developers coming in. It seems as though you guys keep a steady track and you're really trying to move momentum forward.
Well, I think one of the secrets is really you need to have people involved with your ecosystem that you listen to who aren't devs, that are not super brainy people. Like you're one of the smartest people I know in the space, super talented with coding and stuff, but you can't be the best at everything, right? So you need more like Anna Ginsbergs on the team, that are bringing it down to earth, that understand people, that understand markets and brands and stuff. Because at the end of the day, all this is going to be about brands. No one's going to care about features. They're all going to kind of do the same thing. You're going to be able to swap between them. So people are going to hold on to the coins they like because of the brand. And so you need to have, in order to have a good brand, you have to have a wide range of people. You can't just have a bunch of devs on your team making decisions, because you're going to make decisions about your brand that appeal only to geeks and nerds and crypto people. For mass adoption, you have to make decisions about how your coin is perceived based on what average people want to see, right? And that's why we're focusing on this crypto made easy thing. Now it's ahead of its time in that the masses aren't coming in yet, But my theory is I've been talking recently about the TikTok effect, where I believe that the new technological paradigms will start first in high school and college age kids, and just like TikTok did, and everybody laughed about TikTok. Nobody thought that companies are going to be creating TikTok accounts, because that's just for little kids dancing, and but quickly it takes off, and I think that's going to keep happening, and that's going to happen with crypto too, which means crypto will be adopted by the several 100 million teenage kids around the world first. And so we're positioning Divi to appeal to that demographic by building various types of use cases around it, by doing our graphics that are oriented to that, building all our products, like you mentioned, we're in WhatsApp, and we'll be adding to Instagram and everything else, right? So everything we're doing is focused on that, because I think in the next, crypto may take 10 years to get mass adopted. It will be adopted within 2 or 3 years by that demographic, and it starts there. And if we're in that demographic early, that's where we win. And the top crypto brands have the potential to be $1 trillion value coins, right? And it can happen very fast if everybody is using Divi or using Zap, because Zap has the killer app for that demographic. And they like the name. It's short. It's memorable. Zap can be that too, right? So
yeah, I think I agree with you on a lot of the sentiments and directions that you're talking about, like TikTok. Not necessarily who would have thought it, but when you look back at it, it seems so clear. Like, music is a big part of our lives. People like to make little short videos. It's a short attention span thing. Yeah, I mean, I buy into everything you're saying, and I think you're 100% right. We actually have some comment in here from the audience, and I usually don't bring them up if it's not that great, but this is actually a question. It says, where do you guys see blockchain going? Where do you see blockchain in the future, considering where the economy is going? And I actually kind of want you to field this question, Jeff. I think it's pretty interesting.
So blockchain is disappearing, right? So in the end of the day, nobody cares about blockchain. It just becomes a technology that's in the background. Like, nobody cares how the internet works. They just want it to work. And so blockchains need to disappear. You need to take all the crypto out of crypto, all the cryptography, all the puzzle solving that's now a part of our daily crypto lives. It needs to go away so that people can just use their products the way you use PayPal or the internet. People are not particularly confused by using PayPal or their internet banking, and so all the products need to work that way. And I've seen a few companies that are using blockchain, and you look at their website, not anywhere on their website does it mention blockchain, does it mention crypto. All it talks about is the benefits to the user, and that's what we want. And if your product doesn't have any benefits, and blockchain can't make a better product that can compete in the open market, then you've got a problem with your product. It's there's only so much hype you can generate the end of the day, your product needs to use blockchain in such a way that it makes it better than what's already out there. And that's why I'm excited about NFTs. You guys were talking about NFTs. You know, NFTs
Yeah.
solve a whole bunch of problems in the real world, especially related to gaming right now, that you can't, that are done better. You know, you can't, a centralized database may be faster, but there's a lot of problems with it. And so that's actually a real world problem that's being solved by Nifties, right? And so I'm very focused on Nifty stuff right now. One of the things I talked about in Live at 5 yesterday is that we've set up a Wax node, and we're working on creating a wrapped Divi for Wax, and nobody's created a token for Wax. But I think it's going to be really cool because that allows our Divi natively to interact with Nifties without having to just go whole hard into Wax token itself. We use Wax for the gas and for the smart contracts, but Divi's over there that are actually powering the apps. And that when people see what we do there, everybody's going to be really understanding the power of Divi everywhere and of having their token everywhere. Because, you know, if you've got a token, you've got a token and a cryptocurrency, and you've got it on just one chain, but now all of a sudden Nifty's become this giant thing, and Wax is the king of them. Well, you're screwed because you're too late. You know, and you're in the wrong place. But if we have your token everywhere, we can very quickly shift value from one network ecosystem to another. And so that's part of what we're doing. It's not just creating these wrap tokens everywhere, but creating in our apps a way to click a button and just swap from one to the next really easily. And so you just wherever you need to be, whatever app you want to use, Divi will be there. It'll just be ubiquitous, and that's an absolutely important part of of branding. Because if you're not doing that, what you're doing is maximalism, and nobody likes maximalism. It doesn't work for anybody. I mean, maybe it works for ETH and Bitcoin, but it doesn't really work for anybody else. So every other token needs to be talking about interoperability, because we're already behind. You know, if you're not ETH or Bitcoin, then you have to make your token, your cryptocurrency work as many places as you can, because we just don't know where the next great application. I mean, look how fast DeFi came up. All of a sudden, this DeFi world came up, and billions of dollars started pouring into it. If you're not on the ETH blockchain, on the Ethereum blockchain, participating in that, you're losing a lot of potential. And as far as, you know, creating use cases for your token and creating scarcity for your token, which is what your users want. They want you to create scarcity. So you have to kind of be everywhere. So that's kind of where we're getting in position. And if you think of it like a war, right, where we have sort of scouts, these scout tokens you could think of on all of these different blockchain networks that are ready to go in small amounts. You know, we'll put 100,000 here, 100,000 there. And then if a cool app is there, we can talk to the owners, you know, people producing it and say, oh, this is a great app. We want to be part of it. You know, how do we become part of this? And so I don't know, it's an interesting strategy. I'm surprised again that people aren't doing it, but I think everyone will be doing this a couple of years from now.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, you know, I know like people tend to think that, you know, Bitcoin, especially like the ETH Max ones, I'm like you're talking about, they're like, oh, Bitcoin's old, it's slow, like all these things. I'm like, you know, look, it's a really follow the leader with Bitcoin in a lot of ways, like wrapped Bitcoin, for example. Now it's wrapped everything, right? So, I mean, the Bitcoin ecosystem in a lot of ways drives the rest of the market. And I think we get, you know, caught up because I think a lot of people come to get rich and they want to invest in something, they want to make a lot of money, and they end up staying for the tech, which is something everybody says. But it's interesting because, you know, with the perspective of several years in blockchain and really understanding the technology, you know, I'm not going to say I know everything, because I don't think anybody in the space really does understand everything about it, because there's so many variables and so much to learn. But I do think some core principles are right. You mentioned a couple of things that I love to hear. One of them is value ecosystem, which is really what we're talking about here, right? You're talking about the entire value of the network, the sum of all its parts, and that's really what goes into giving a token value. And one of these things that, and I'm going to keep harping on it, is having a base layer, you know, protocol layer that's running your layer one, your you know, whether it's proof of stake or if it's, you know, proof of work or whatever. But there's inherent value in running a system of nodes, and it's really important because it gives your network independence, sustainability, all these wonderful things. The second thing that you mentioned, value equal. I'm sorry, the value ecosystem, then ubiquity. Going to all chains everywhere you can get in to impart value, not even just as a part of your primary chain, but also these other chains you can piggyback on them and allow for it. The final thing that you're talking about is this interoperability component that is so needed, right? And I think it's a real open field. And I know, you and I have talked about different mechanisms to maybe, what it looks like to create bridges. And, I think from the perspective of Zap and what you were mentioning, it's really interesting to see kind of how the market's shaping up, because there's no one way to do things. And I don't know if there's a specific right way to do things, right? So like the way that I like to make it make sense in my mind is really like what you were saying, like, I take issue when people say blockchain is a slow, inefficient database. It's hyper efficient. It's efficient at redundancy, right? You're never. I don't know if you're never going to be able to compete, but the centralized model where you query one server and you get a response back instantaneously, right?
Mhm.
This is a phenomenal model for a lot of reasons. I don't think it's going away. It makes sense in a lot of occasions. Like, what if the entire business model is based on trust, right? A lawyer, an accountant, you have to go to this one source and you have to have themselves a reputation. A doctor, for example, like these trust-based systems will always exist in some way or another, right?
What you're talking about is like hybrid, and that's the way we see it too. In the old days, Bitcoin people, I think, thought, regular money will go away and there'll only be Bitcoin, right? But we think of things in terms of hybrid systems. Ethereum has advantages over centralized databases, but both will exist. So everything we're building is based on a hybrid model. Like in our wallets, we have both fiat and cryptocurrencies, because we're not under this illusion that fiat doesn't matter. I mean, maybe it won't matter in 20 years, but in the short term, in the lifetime of these products, fiat matters a lot. It matters really a lot. And so if you're ignoring that, then your product is not going to be very useful to people. That's why when we're launching it, we have ETH, Litecoin, and Bitcoin already on our mobile wallet from the first launch, because we know all those are so important.
Yeah, and I think it's like, the way that I always saw it, and if you want to consider me more like a Bitcoin maxi or whatever, like, this ideological vision where Bitcoin's like, an international currency, everybody uses it. I think that there's some problems to solve before we get there. But also, I'll say this. I don't look at it the same way as other people. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson, who, I grew up watching on PBS and all this stuff, he had a really good thing. And he was talking about religion. He's like, it's like tennis players to me, like, and I'm not trying to get too much into this, but I'm saying it was it changed my mind because I grew up in like this Catholic family, everything like that. But he was saying, like, religion was like tennis players to me. Like, I don't play tennis. I don't get mad at tennis players. Like, it's not a big deal to me, like, whatever. Right. But, that's the way I look at like people who are talking about one mechanism versus another. It's like, I don't get mad at the shovel if I need a rake. It's like, it's a rake. And I think that some of the people that really like stand out there and really, start preaching this whole thing, in sometimes intelligent people, but they're missing, a core competency in a specific set of understanding about technologies, which is the right tool for the right job, right? And this is what Eric and I try to embody as developers. We have core principles. We do believe in things that like we want to see happen, and we do think that we have arguments for it as such. But I don't think that tokenize everything all the time, everywhere. What am I going to tokenize my conversation with somebody? Like, why would I do that? If it's my family, like, I mean, when we're really talking about tokenizing everything, and we have the capabilities to with the advent of oracles and all this stuff. So it's just
my example about that is, I remember reading on the Coinbase site, they were talking about tokenizing everything, and they had this great example of, someday where, your house will be represented by tokens, and when you want to sell it to somebody, you can just pass the ownership of the tokens to them, and you don't have to go through all this crazy paperwork. And I remember, and they were selling this as a great idea, and my instant thought was, oh my God, this is the worst idea I've ever heard. Like, so that means if you get hacked and you lose your tokens, you lose your house. Now, North Korean state actors are going to be stealing people's houses and having them evicted because they got the tokens. Like I can see so many things that can go wrong with this. So it's very very early, I think, to be kind of selling this idea that's scaring the crap out of people.
Yeah, and I think it's a bigger thing too, is like you have to allow humans to be human at some point in time. And I'm not saying, you can take things out of context, like, oh, well, Adam and Jeff had this conversation 10 years ago and they're talking about how this is going to be talking about. I think that would miss the point. The point,
Mhm.
I think that the salient point here is that, look, if there's a way to do it that makes sense, like, and it makes sense from practical human perspective, right? Then we're going to do it because it's better. It has advantages. And this is what goes down to you. Like, people don't care, if their water bottle's made out of plastic, like, unless they're conscious buyer or something. But like, the plastic innovation was amazing. It allows you to carry water everywhere. But like, blockchain really does need to get to that stage, in my opinion, where
Yeah.
it's not people evangelizing, oh, blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. It's like, it's just everywhere because it is better at certain things. I mean, it has to operate on its merits as a better technology. And that's really the only way we'll get to mass adoptions. And we have a lot of feelings and belief, and we can see where it's going. We're not there yet. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. Like, there's tons of, even from Divi's and the Zap team, which is Nick's company there, like, I can say, there's tons of work that needs to go in everywhere. There's tons of code, there's tons of development efforts, and this stuff takes time. You can't fake it. You can't fake it. At the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If the market doesn't
Yeah.
respond well, then it's not the right idea in a lot of instances. And sometimes you're too early, sometimes you're too late. It's a give and take. So I think that we're going to see, in the upcoming year, I think we'll see a lot more use cases. And I think that part of the reason is a lot of the code is caught up.
That's where Zap comes in too. Like, people don't understand like the importance of oracles. I recognized that right early on, in 2017, when I started designing, how our blockchain would work, what could do. I started thinking, like, how are we going to connect this to the real world? And I started thinking about how it would work. And then I discovered, oh, this thing already exists. It's an idea. It's called an oracle, right? And I got really excited, like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and it's a great word for it, But they didn't exist at the time. It was like this theoretical idea, and then later on, I heard about Chainlink. Then I heard about you guys' Zap, and I was very excited about Zap because of the way you are. I wouldn't say it's user friendly now, but when the new front end is done and the stuff that you're working on, it really brings it down to earth in a way that people can sort of understand, and that is so important. And people don't understand some people do. That's why Chainlink is worth billions, right? People understand the value of oracles, but the average person, I think, doesn't. But some really smart people in the space understand that oracles are absolutely crucial to real life use cases. To make any of this really useful to anybody, we need to have oracles, and Zap's solution is really great, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited. And I wanted to partner with you guys the moment I heard about it, because I knew that we needed an oracle token partner to be able to achieve mass adoption. It's just there's no way around that, and I didn't want to try to build it into DIVI. So all these things take time, obviously, but I'm very excited about working with Zap.
Yeah, I think there's it's like the thawing after crypto winter right now. Like, there's plenty of food around, and like that, you got to go pick it up and cook it. All the animals are back out, so this is like, I mean, people are really, I mean, it's everybody can say whatever they want. They can put on as good of a face as they want about crypto, but when Bitcoin hits $3,000, people panic, right? And that's like, it's really funny to see, the market cycles and like, feast and famine mentality over here in crypto. I think I do think in general though, like you were saying, I think it's incredible, and we have a lot of opportunities, not only this year, but in the upcoming years, to really tap into systems like yours, proof of stake. Like, what else can we do? Like, where can we go with that? Like, there's so many avenues. If you want the merits of proof of stake, I mean, look at Ethereum switching over, right? Like, there is tangible value in a proof of stake system, and personally, like, I lean more towards the proof of work just because Bitcoin is near and dear to my heart, right? But I think as far as different tool, different job, right? You can't get some of the same things you can on proof of work, and that's part of the reason that you see major projects saying, hey, look, we're gonna go proof of stake, because all these benefits, right?
Oh yeah,
And
especially the staking. That's a part of the importance of branding. If you're holding a token or a crypto of some kind and it's not staking, then you're losing that potential of getting new coins, right? So your brand is going to suffer because, oh, that's one of those non-staking coins. Why would I want that? There's going to be this thing. There's this sort of gamification. There's this addiction to winning your stakes, and anything you can do as a cryptocurrency, like we're building pool staking products into all of our products so that you can get that daily reward of how much you got, even if it's just 2 cents worth, because you've got $50 worth of DIVI in there and you get your 2 cents every day or whatever it adds up to. It's still exciting because you're getting something and it feels like it's for free, right? And so if your brand of money doesn't do that, then you're at a disadvantage in the future. And one of the things I started talking about and recently about proof of stake is how the central bank digital currencies are going to have a branding problem, because not only they sort of old money that's just sort of uncool, but they don't stake. And the interesting thing is they could stake because all of them are expanding their money supply, but they do it right now through quantum easing and through fractional lending. So the people that tend to benefit from this tend to be the rich people, right? With staking, what you're basically doing is expanding your money supply, but everybody is benefiting. If the staking requirements aren't that high, or if you've got a pool staking mechanism, then everybody, and that's a very different model as far as who gets who basically wins when the money supply is expanding. And so it occurred to me that once there's a level playing field, crypto is going to just crush these central bank digital currencies, which is scary in some ways because it makes you think that, well, maybe the governments are going to have to do something about that. But the other option is because they have to compete with each other, they might have to start adding staking. Because imagine like the US is creating a US dollar as a token, right? But now China decides to, take the trillions of dollars of extra money they have sitting around in US treasuries, and they're going to start staking. So now, if you move your money into yuan, which is pegged to the dollar basically by the Chinese government, and you're getting 2% a year on that just by owning it, well, a lot of people are going to start moving their money out of dollars into yuan, right? And we're not talking about competing with Bitcoin. We're talking about these coins competing with each other for worldwide attention. And farmers in Africa, when you've got an app, which we'll have, that allow you to move all of these things around very, very easily in exchange, they're smart people. The people all over the world are smart, and the poorer they are, the smarter they are as far as saving pennies. They will figure out if they can save 1 penny or make a penny, they will, right?
Yeah, I think
We're talking about a whole different world.
You're exactly right. And China is a very interesting thing to me because you hear a lot of politicians take a really aggressive stance, but then shoot our own country. You're US, I'm US. It's I don't understand the aggressive nature. I don't think they understand the implications of their actions, the things that they're doing right now, and the effects, like you were just mentioning, the effects that we're going to see in the future because of this aggressive stance, where billions and billions of dollars every day are now moving, overseas to places like China that, even if they don't allow the mass population to do it, they still even allow like a select few to operate in this manner, right? We in the US, I think the path and the strategy that they really took, even if they would have allowed it to exist and expand for a while and put like a sunset limit on it to allow the market to mature to learn things, we would have been much better suited than that. I spoke to a guy that was sponsoring a bill for this. He's like, look, we need a sunset regulation. We need time to figure out the industry, right? Like, and that's literally like, hey, look, like, let's just hands off it, let it develop, and then we can figure out, kind of how we can fit in and not kill everything or whatever. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of regulation. I never will be. These are my principles as a person, as a person. And I understand people have different viewpoints, but what I'm trying to say is, if you're an American and if you value our country being really good, and if all these wonderful things that everybody, these higher thoughts that we all want to appeal to, the fact that, majority of the US population doesn't understand what's going on with this massive value transfer into crypto, which is happening every day. And we're not going to be able to shut it off. We're not going to be able to stop it. It is Pandora's box. It's like what was it? Leia from Star Wars. The harder the Empire squeezes, the rebellion comes out. Like the more rebellion comes out, stuff like that. It's just, I think that for all the tough talk and everything, when you look at somebody like China making smart decisions when it comes to allowing their nationals to operate in crypto and run companies and everything else, and then if you look at the U.S., we have a couple, we have some good companies. I still think we're an industry leader, but that's going to completely and quickly change if we don't make a different decision soon. I think these old laws do not, like you were saying, like we could create a proof of stake system. These old laws are in a lot of ways incompatible, and it's not our job to go back in time and try to comply to something that was 200 years ago. It's their job to kind of modernize and realize that, hey, look, there's better ways of doing things now. And I really hope that with this, I can only hope for the best, but with the new presidency and everything like that coming up, I really hope that we have good regulation. That's something that I really hope for, because if it's not, it's going to be really tough, and that's gonna suck really bad, and it might cause a lot of problems. I might have to go down to Costa Rica or wherever, where you are, and start.
Yeah, I'd love. That's my dream, is to have kind of a blockchain center, and of sort of a bunch of coins. There's another cryptocurrency that was started near me called NIMIQ, NIMIQ. It's a really good one. That's not very well known, but it's a great team and great ideas. And that was started, in the middle of nowhere, like I am, on the beach in Costa Rica, by a team mostly Germans, and I kind of going back and forth between Germany and Costa Rica, working on this thing, and so I'd love to have more energy down there, blockchain and crypto down there. So we're actually building this digital nomad space that can have, probably we'll be able to house about 20 people. So hoping to attract people, and we're only accepting crypto. All the payments for food, lodging, everything will be crypto only. So nice. We'll accept Bitcoin, and we'll accept Zap, or all our friends. All our friend coins can be there, and that's part of what we're doing. Is we're kind of building this alliance of really good cryptos that solve real problems with really good teams that are likely to survive long term, and putting them all into one set of applications that will sort of morph into a platform over time, where people can build apps that use all of these. And that's why we want Zap to be the Oracle coin. So I think you're doing the most interesting things. I mean, Chainlink and a lot of other ones get all the press, but Zap to me is building the actual most interesting set of tools for people that, to me, is going to at some point be discovered and take off. So I'm very happy, bullish about that.
Definitely the hope. And I mean, just to, I guess, like sum up, I think that general sentiment, and I mean, we could talk about Divi forever. We could talk about, all the wonderful features, and we could talk about, the staking and everything, which I think is a huge incentive. Your multi-tiered system for stake nodes and all this wonderful stuff. I think it's incredible what you guys are doing, but I think even more so just the team that you guys have, the community that you guys have, people like Nick, people like you that go out and evangelize and, aren't afraid to talk about, what they're doing right, what they can improve upon, everything else. And have an abundance mentality, which is, hey, look, I want Divi everywhere. Like, I'll work with anybody who want to work with us. We want to put it, everywhere we possibly can. I just think that's a benefit to your guys' community, to you, to your team. And I it's infectious, it's contagious, the way that you guys talk and the way that, like, you see things. I hope that I have that same type of feeling when I talk to people. I know sometimes I get a little stressed out. Like, we have all these projects going on over here, but I've never had anything but a positive experience with you guys. All your community has been super wonderful. And we're really happy to have you guys, come on and talk about your project. And I think what you guys are doing is incredible, and we're appreciative of your support and everything else. And we hope that we could continue to try and find places to put Divi everywhere. That's like the top of my mind every time I think about you guys. So
you'll notice one of my things with marketing strategy. A few people have noticed this, but when I talk, I tend to talk a lot about, like, 3 years from now, really about the long-term vision and stuff. And that's done on purpose, because I want to attract people to Divi who are long-term thinkers, long-term holders. Because when you attract speculators who just care about what the price is now, it's difficult, right, to have your price go up, and everybody wants the price to go up, right? So we want people that are thinking long term. So I talk a lot about where Divi is going to be in 3 years. I mean, we're really trying to build all the right tools. The future is a moving target, and we're trying to build the right stuff at the right time so that 2 or 3 years from now, we're in the right place to be that $1 trillion market cap coin, right? Because it's the one that's everywhere, that everybody's using, that has all the good use cases, that's cool. So really thinking of long term. And I think that you're better served, and it's really worked for us. We only Chainlink, actually, of all the sort of the ICOs from May 2017 on, has built more value than Divi. We're number 2 in the whole space as far as how much we raised and how much our market cap is now. So we've turned 2.6 million into, I don't know what it is today, but maybe $65 million market cap. It's a huge market cap increase.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And we've done it without any major partnerships or without being on any good exchanges.
I wish I had the Divi by the numbers slide. I wish I had the Divis by the numbers slide and we could pull it in. I was watching that yesterday. I was like, damn, they have all their numbers figured out. I love it. These things are important. It shows that you guys actually have a team that's aware of the statistics, aware of the metrics. And, in every company that I've ever worked with, you have to know the numbers. You have to understand where you're succeeding and where you're not. So, I mean, I think we have a couple minutes left here. What I usually like to do here is give final thoughts, and then also just, where should we follow you, Jeff, specifically, but also Divi, anything else you'd like to say? What this is 3 minutes, all yours. I'd love to give it to you.
Yeah, well, I have a Twitter account, but I don't really use it. I keep saying, oh, I got to start doing that. But I tend to, instead of spending 20 minutes a day coming up with a brilliant Twitter tweet to grow my Twitter, I spend 20 minutes a day talking directly to our users, especially all the new ones. So basically anybody that wants to talk to me can just join our Telegram, and I'll tend to say hi to people. A lot of people think that I'm a scammer trying to get them to send me a Bitcoin so I can send them 5, but because no CEOs do that, but I do. I really do that with everybody. Everybody new that I see, if I notice, to say hi. I want to find out what they're passionate about, how they see Divi, how they found out about us. And that's really valuable information, for the CEO of a company to know exactly who the people are, where they came from, and what their expectations are. That's phenomenally valuable, right? You can try to poll your users and stuff, but we don't need to, because we know what they want. I know personally, right? And a lot of times people because I did that, end up buying a lot more Divi than they were planning, or it turns out there's some, they're really valuable to the ecosystem. They have some great advice, or they know a developer. All kinds of people like that have ended up being really valuable just because I reached out. So that's the best way to meet me, is just join our Telegram, and then we can chat. I take the time to do it because I find there's a ton of value in it.
Absolutely. I think there's nothing more valuable than talking to actual people that are using the product, participating in the ecosystem and the community. So, I mean, me and you definitely mirror that sentiment. I try to get into the Telegram as much as possible for our communities and talk. Sometimes I get grilled, and I actually like it because it tells me what I'm doing wrong or what I'm doing right,
Super valuable.
But yeah, I mean, that's like my favorite stuff, because I see it as a challenge. I'm like, oh man, we gotta do better. It's like, oh, I thought I was this big shot. Now it's like, oh, nothing.
Yeah, no,
chop down.
Yeah, that's very true. And sometimes people come in and they can appear very trollish because they're very negative. They're asking really annoying questions, very tough questions. They're not accepting the answers that the community is giving them. Those are my favorite people. When I see that they're just really smart and they're really skeptical, which they should be in crypto, those are my favorite people, because when I can turn them around, these guys have big mouths and they stick around. They're often Bitcoin whales. They become very valuable to the ecosystem when you can turn them around. So I'm always telling our community members and admins, like, send these people to me. Now if they're really trolls, then we just try to kick them out as fast as possible. If they're just there to make trouble, then we get rid of them. We don't engage them. But when they're people like this, when you turn them around and make them a fan, boy, they're a fan for life. So, and I learned it's the same thing with my hotel. The people that are the angriest, most pissed off customers about something, but if I actually take the time to listen to them and make changes and get them what they need, often they have a good reason for being upset about something. There was an honest mistake that was made or whatever. When I fix them, they come back year after year and they tell everybody, so it's the same thing in our Telegram.
100%. And just two final items. I do want to talk to your team about IPFS and ENS domains. I know I brought that up in the past, and we can follow up online on a separate chat. And then the second thing is, hey, look, my favorite job that I ever had in the world was front desk at a hotel. I worked at the Marriott across the street from the Pentagon for a long time. And I'll tell you what, the best people I ever met in my life, the funnest job I ever had. I've never been more happy than working there. I don't know why. It just was like awesome to solve
You're a
problems.
people
So,
person. You're a people
yeah,
person. They knew that. They put you in the right place.
yeah, it was fun. I mean, I was mining Bitcoin, I was soldering them. All the generals were like, what are you doing in Bitcoin? What are you talking about? You know, like these are like 3-star
That's great.
generals, 2-star generals. So like I taught all them, so they're probably all rich on it, like all the top guys now. Anyways, but all right, I'll talk to you later. Jeff, I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we have you back soon, and maybe we can grab Nick next time. You know, you guys are on here. I think it's a little short notice, but next time we could probably grab him.
Yeah, he's more. I'm the pie in the sky kind of guy talking about 3 years. He's very practical. He can tell you about all the products, what they're doing, and it's completely different presentation. And you kind of talk to both of us to know what's going on with DIVI.
Absolutely. All right, thank you so much. We're gonna continue on. Justin, bye,
Thank you.
Jeff. Thank you.
Bye.
And